You are not what they told you to be. You are not the reflection in their mirror. From the moment you take your first steps into the world, society begins to paint a picture over you, a picture that is not yours. You learn what is expected, how to look, how to speak, how to succeed, how to belong. It is subtle. A parent's pride becomes a chain. A teacher's approval becomes a script. A friend's envy becomes a shadow you carry. The mirror you hold up to yourself slowly fills with someone else's face. You begin to answer to their expectations more than your own instincts. Every smile you force, every path you choose because it seems safe, every desire you silence because it doesn't fit the mold, they seep into your identity, quietly eroding it. You feel it as a vague unrest, a whisper of dissatisfaction that you cannot name. It is the slow theft of self, one unnoticed compromise at a time, until you reach adulthood wondering why your reflection feels strange. Jung called it the loss of soul, the subtle, insidious corrosion of individuality under the weight of collective demand. You are not awake to the theft because it masquerades as guidance. You do not see the mirror they held in front of you was never your own. Comfort is a clever jailer. The world presents security as freedom. The straight path through school, the career ladder that promises status, the social rituals that disguise obedience as connection. These are chains, invisible yet binding, disguised in gold, masked as wisdom. You are praised for following them, told you are safe, told you are thriving, while beneath the surface your autonomy suffocates. The news you consume, the trends you chase, the conversations you avoid because they are too risky, they are all cords, tethering you to a life scripted by others. Peer pressure is a whisper, education a structure, media a silent architect of conformity. The weight is so normalized you do not question it. You accept the cage because it feels like comfort. And comfort in this form is betrayal. It robs you of the raw, chaotic, unpolished truth of yourself. You live under the illusion that you are free, while every decision has been softened, shaped, and subtracted from the core of who you might have been. And still, the quietest betrayals are the ones you commit yourself. Every time you choose the path that pleases others over the path that nourishes your soul, you plant a seed of doubt in the soil of your being. Every time you stay silent instead of speaking your truth, you give power to fear disguised as civility. These small compromises, unnoticed at first, form a pattern, a shadow that spreads across your inner landscape. Like a slow drip of ink into water, they darken the clarity of your self-awareness. Your identity becomes a patchwork of convenience and approval, stitched together with fear. You wake up one day and realize the weight of your own concessions has grown heavy. You are complicit in your own erasure, and it is intimate, inescapable, unavoidable. It is not just the world that betrays you, it is the choices you make in its service, the quiet nods to convenience over courage. This is the painful truth. The world does not steal your soul openly. It persuades, cajoles, and seduces. It teaches you to hand it over willingly, piece by piece, reflection by reflection. Every habit of obedience, every act of quiet compromise, every gaze cast toward approval is a betrayal, a shadow crossing your own threshold. You were programmed to trade freedom for safety, authenticity for comfort, and the cost is a life lived partially outside yourself. Recognize it now, before the erosion becomes irreparable. Wake to the mirror that shows you not yourself, but a mask carefully pressed onto your face by unseen hands. The first betrayal is believing their reflection is yours. Most people do not see that the cage they live in is gilded. From the outside, it looks perfect. The apartment in the city, the car everyone envies, the career ladder steadily climbed, the life carefully curated on social media, it gleams like gold, polished and dazzling. but looks closer. This is the golden cage. Every choice made to satisfy others, every compromise to maintain comfort, every pursuit of approval, these are the bars that surround you. Society whispers that safety is everything, that stability is the ultimate goal, that following the rules guarantees happiness. But the cost is steep. Your freedom, your spontaneity, your raw, unfiltered impulses, they are exchanged silently for the illusion of security. You obey schedules designed by someone else's clock, chase ambitions that belong to a story someone else wrote, measure your worth by markers of success that were never truly yours. Every step toward comfort is a step away from authenticity. Jung would call this the shadow of conformity, the hidden cost of living in alignment with expectations instead of with the self. You are praised for this obedience, congratulated for this so-called maturity, while inside the golden cage grows heavier and your soul feels the pressure. Love is rarely pure in a world ruled by expectation. Relationships are filtered through obligation, tradition, or the desire for approval. You learn to mold yourself for others, the partner who needs reassurance, the family that requires compliance, the friend who judges any deviation. The affection you receive is conditional, based on performance rather than presence. You stay quiet when you crave honesty. You temper passion to prevent conflict. You suppress dreams to avoid jealousy or envy. The result is a life of muted emotions, where attachment feels like captivity. Love that lies is the most insidious of all societal illusions, because it teaches you to betray your deepest desires for the sake of seeming harmony. You adapt, you comply, and slowly, the voice of your true self grows fainter, replaced by a version of you carefully engineered to fit into someone else's idea of love. The heart remembers, though. The echoes of suppressed longing whisper in moments of solitude, haunting reminders that connection was never authentic, that affection was transactional, that true intimacy was sacrificed at the altar of expectation. Even when love seems authentic, you are still performing. The mask you wear is subtle, almost invisible to those who admire you, but palpable to the one who lives inside it. You smile, you nod, you laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You follow rituals that feel hollow, and you curate moments of joy for the eyes of others, while your interior world lies in shadows. This mask protects you, shields you from judgment, keeps you accepted, but it also suffocates the self. Each day spent wearing it is a day the real you is deferred, a day authenticity is postponed. It becomes habitual. You cannot remember when the mask began, but the reflection in the mirror looks unfamiliar, hollow, fractured. The performative self is an armor that isolates you from genuine experience, preventing the very connections you crave. It is both shield and prison, a paradox of survival that leaves your soul feeling thin, your decisions alien, and your desires secret. Recognize it. The mask is not you, and the freedom you seek will never come while it remains glued to your face. The illusions of comfort, love, and acceptance are powerful because they are seductive. They promise warmth, security, and belonging, but in truth, they often deliver cold shadows, silent chains, and invisible cages. You can see them if you dare to look, if you dare to feel the weight of compliance, if you dare to recognize that what is praised by others is not always nourishing to your soul. Liberation begins in the moment you notice the gilded bars, the conditional affection, and the masks you wear. It begins when you decide to step beyond the applause, the security, and the well-meant advice toward a life where authenticity and desire have room to breathe. Only then can comfort become choice, love become real, and masks fall away. Not all that glitters is warmth. Some lights are shadows in disguise. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. From the very beginning, Your mind absorbs more than you realize. The home you were born into, the words whispered in anger or silence, the expectations silently passed from parent to child, all leave invisible fingerprints on your psyche. These inherited chains shape your thoughts, desires, and fears long before you understand them. A parent's unresolved grief becomes your anxiety. A sibling's rivalry becomes your need for approval. Patterns repeat themselves, not because you chose them, but because they were coded into your emotional DNA. Jung called these shadows of the past the unconscious inheritance of the psyche, a set of templates that quietly guide decisions, often against your conscious will. You may believe you are acting freely, making your own choices, but many of your impulses are echoes of someone else's pain, someone else's expectations, someone else's compromise. Modern life hides these chains behind achievement, ambition, and social norms, but they are there, silent, persistent, and shaping every step you take. To see them is not to blame, it is awakening. To recognize that much of what you thought was your own desire is borrowed, imposed, or conditioned is the first glimpse of liberation. There are moments in life when these inherited chains assert themselves like invisible puppeteers. You meet a challenge, and instead of responding from clarity, you react with fear you cannot explain. You enter a relationship, and old wounds whisper you should settle, or fight, or betray yourself in subtle ways. A childhood pattern of scarcity makes you hoard experiences or money even when abundance surrounds you. A long ago rejection manifests as overcompensation in your career or friendships. These are the puppets of pain. You feel compelled to act in ways that seem automatic, irrational, or self-sabotaging. Social scripts, combined with the unhealed echoes of early trauma, ensure that conformity feels safe, rebellion feels risky, and authenticity feels impossible. The horror is not that the world manipulates you, but that your own history manipulates you, shaping choices and preferences in ways that feel both intimate and invisible. Every instinct that contradicts your conscious desire is a shadowed string pulled from a long-forgotten wound. Recognizing this is unsettling. It is cinematic, dramatic, and sometimes unbearable, but also crucial. Without awareness, you will continue to repeat patterns, unknowingly handing power to a past that never served you. The first act of liberation is recognition. Awareness of these forces, the acknowledgement that your unconscious has been silently directing your steps, is rebellion in its purest form. Confronting the inherited chains, naming the puppets of pain, and observing their influence is not weakness. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your life. You must sit with the discomfort of seeing how much of your behavior is scripted by unhealed trauma, without judgment, without guilt. This recognition is the shadow's invitation, a quiet nod that says, "I am here, I am real, I am ready." Only then can you begin to untangle yourself from the past, separating your authentic choices from the automatic responses of old wounds. Awareness transforms the shadow from a tyrant into a guide, from chains into lessons, from manipulation into wisdom. Every fear acknowledged, every old pattern named, is a crack in the wall of inherited control. This is where conscious life begins. This is where the first act of true freedom starts, not in grand gestures, but in intimate, unwavering attention to the ways your past has shaped your present. Your wounds are not obstacles to escape. They are messages demanding your attention. They speak in subtle ways, a recurring fear, a pattern of avoidance, a silent ache in your chest. Listen closely. Jung reminded us that the shadow is everything you do not want to be. You are your shadows, your inherited chains, your puppets of pain. They are all part of yourself that requires acknowledgement. When you face them, when you name them, when you understand them, they lose their power to control you unconsciously. Liberation begins not with denial, not with repression, but with conscious listening, conscious acknowledgement, and deliberate choice. Awareness is rebellion. Recognition is the first step toward reclaiming your autonomy from the ghosts of the past, and it is the step that allows you to later build a life grounded in authenticity rather than automatic compliance. Your wounds are teachers, not dictators, if you dare to listen. Who are you when no one is watching, when no applause fills the room, when the roles you play are stripped away? You arrive at a moment in life when the structures that once guided you crumble. The rules, the expectations, the comforts, they fail to hold you together. You realize that the reflection you have been tending to, the identity carefully constructed to please, to survive, to belong, is fractured. Shattered mirrors lie around you, fragments of what you thought you were. Each shard reflects a different story. The obedient child, the ambitious worker, the compliant lover, the silent friend. None of them are complete. None of them are fully you. Suppressed desires, long ignored instincts, and dreams abandoned at the altar of expectation resurface in chaotic waves. You feel pulled in every direction, torn between what you were taught to be and the raw, unshaped essence of who you truly are. Jung spoke of this as the confrontation with the shadow, the unavoidable collision between the persona and the hidden self. It is terrifying because in this moment, nothing feels certain, and every decision you make feels both urgent and meaningless. The cinematic chaos of your inner landscape mirrors a storm outside, broken glass, scattered reflections, and an endless sky of uncertainty. The crisis is not external, it is internal, and it is ruthless. It leaves you raw, exposed, and shaking, questioning every choice you ever made. In the silence that follows the collapse, you confront the echo of your lost self. The loneliness is profound, almost tangible, pressing against your chest with the weight of years of compliance. There is no distraction powerful enough to fill the hollow left behind by the loss of identity. Conversations feel hollow, achievements meaningless, routines mechanical. Even in a crowded room, isolation clings to you, as if your soul has been left behind in the ruins of the persona you once wore. You hear the quiet whisper of all the compromises you have made, all the moments you silenced yourself for acceptance, and all the shadows that have been gathering, unacknowledged. The echo is haunting, but it is also truthful. It tells you something you have been avoiding, that you have been living fragments, never fully present, never fully whole. The solitude is brutal, yet necessary. It is in this emptiness that the cracks begin to show, and the mind begins to peel away the layers imposed by others, revealing the raw contours of self, buried beneath years of adaptation. You feel lost, yes, but also a strange sense of urgency. The opportunity to confront the truth of who you are cannot be ignored. Amid the wreckage, a question emerges, soft but insistent. Who am I beneath the programming? It is the question you cannot avoid, the one that refuses to be silenced by routine or distraction. Every pain, every shadow, every compromise that has led to this collapse now becomes a teacher. The moment of identity fragmentation is also a moment of revelation. The crisis forces you to examine what was borrowed, what was imposed, and what belongs to you alone. It is introspective, suspenseful, and deeply unsettling because the answers are neither immediate nor comfortable. You see the roles you have been playing, and you begin to distinguish them from the self that has been waiting, patient and persistent, beneath the noise. This interrogation of truth is not gentle. It is seismic, shaking the foundations of your inner world, but it is necessary. It allows you to begin reconstructing your identity from the fragments, choosing which pieces to carry forward and which to leave behind. Each question opens a door to clarity, each moment of reflection, a step toward authenticity. The collapse, once unbearable, becomes a crucible for transformation. Only in the breaking, in the unbearable exposure of self, can light enter. Only when the mirror cracks, scattering reflections across the floor, can you glimpse the shape of who you truly are. The devastation of identity is not the end. It is the threshold. Through the fragments, through the silence, through the interrogation of your soul, the path to wholeness begins. You cannot return to who you were, but you can step forward into who you are meant to become. Only when the mirror cracks can the light enter. Love that requires you to shrink yourself is never love at all. From the beginning, we are taught that approval is affection, that compliance is love. A parent praises obedience more than courage. A partner rewards convenience more than authenticity. Friends celebrate agreement over truth. You grow up believing that these validations are expressions of care, that the warmth of approval is equivalent to the warmth of love. But the reality is harsher. These are conditional attachments, affection offered only when you fit into a mold, when you meet expectations, when you perform the roles assigned to you. The illusion of affection convinces you to suppress your instincts, to hide your quirks, to silence the parts of yourself that refuse to conform. You may recall being reprimanded for anger, for desire, for ambition, for asking too much, and rewarded only when you behaved as expected. Over time, you internalize the message to be loved is to be acceptable. Jung would call this the dominance of the persona over the self, the performance of a character at the expense of your soul. Every compromise is a subtle erasure of authenticity, and the line between love and manipulation blurs. You wonder why intimacy feels hollow, why connection seems fleeting, why your heart aches in the presence of those you were taught to trust. The first step toward freedom is acknowledging that many attachments you clung to were never unconditional. They were lessons in obedience disguised as love. Yet, in recognizing this, there is power. Understanding that what you received was conditional is not a verdict of worthlessness. It is liberation. The gift of truth transforms pain into insight. When you see that the approval you sought was never true affection, you stop chasing shadows and illusions. The realization that you were complying with expectations rather than being cherished for your essence frees you from the cycle of dependency and self-erasure. This recognition is gentle but revolutionary. You realize that the heartbreak, the disillusionment and the betrayals were not failures of character, but markers of a system designed to shape you, not love you. You begin to differentiate between connection that nourishes and connection that confines. You begin to see that love is not measured by compliance, but by acceptance, respect and freedom. In this understanding, you reclaim dignity, agency and clarity. The pain that once bound you becomes a teacher, illuminating the path toward relationships that honor rather than demand, that invite rather than coerce. The ultimate anchor in this awakening is the self. True love begins here, within the boundaries of your own integrity and desire. When you cultivate affection, respect and care for yourself first, you are no longer reliant on the conditional approval of others to feel whole. You learn to hold your own heart, to meet your own needs, and to define your own worth. This self-anchoring allows you to approach others from a place of fullness rather than emptiness, to choose relationships that resonate rather than replicate old patterns, and to recognize that external validation is a preference, not a necessity. You are no longer swayed by the pressures to conform or perform. You are guided by alignment with your own truth. In choosing yourself first, you redefine love as freedom rather than obligation, intimacy rather than expectation, and presence rather than approval. Love that demands compromise, conformity, or the suppression of self is not love. It is a lesson dressed in the clothing of care. Reframe your past, see the patterns for what they were, and step into relationships, including the one with yourself, that honor authenticity above all else. Love that demands conformity is not love. It is a lesson disguised as affection. Until you confront what you hide, it will control you silently. The shadow is the part of yourself you have buried. The anger you fear, the desires you suppress, the jealousy you deny, the grief you ignore. It waits in silence, shaping your choices, guiding your fears, whispering commands that feel inevitable. To face it is terrifying, because it demands honesty with parts of yourself you have long condemned. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to stand in its fire. You begin by noticing the moments when you react with disproportionate anger, when envy rises without reason, when sadness surfaces unexpectedly. These are the shadows speaking, showing you the patterns you have denied. In confronting them, you do not weaken yourself. You illuminate the corners of your psyche that have shaped your life without consent. Imagine standing before a darkened lake at night, the surface still, but below, currents churn and swirl. This is the terrain of the shadow, powerful, turbulent, unseen, yet undeniable. To approach it is to accept that darkness exists within you, not to be destroyed, but to be known. Every suppressed fear you acknowledge, every rage you name, every desire you allow into consciousness is a victory. This is the raw, intense work of individuation, where the hidden self stops controlling you from the shadows, and you take the first step toward mastery. Dialogue with the self is the next stage. Once the darkness is illuminated, you must negotiate with it. This is not passive reflection, it is active engagement. You speak with your shadow as if it were a wise, wounded counselor, asking why it acts, what it protects, what it fears. You explore your impulses and instincts, separate them from the script society handed you, and weigh them against your authentic values. Perhaps you recognize that your anger shields your vulnerability, that your desire masks long-suppressed needs for creativity, that your avoidance protects a fragile self-image. You begin to converse with these parts, listening without judgment, responding without fear. This inner negotiation allows you to reclaim choice, to act in alignment with values, rather than react from old patterns. Imagine a chessboard where every piece represents a part of your psyche. By acknowledging each piece and understanding its role, you can strategize your moves consciously rather than being forced into the game by unconscious impulses. This cinematic inner dialogue turns fear into clarity, shadow into guidance, and confusion into direction. From this confrontation and dialogue, transformation emerges. You move from victimhood to sovereignty. The patterns that once dictated your reactions, fear of rejection, compulsion to conform, shadowed impulses of anger or avoidance, begin to yield to conscious authority. You no longer drift through life, buffeted by unseen currents of past wounds and societal programming. Instead, you reclaim power over your choices, your emotions, your attention. Decisions that once felt automatic now arise from deliberate intention. Emotional triggers become signals, not chains. Anger becomes insight, fear becomes a compass, and desire becomes aligned with authentic purpose. This sovereignty is not arrogance, it is presence, clarity, and mastery over self. Every choice you make is a declaration that you will no longer surrender your agency to patterns, people, or past traumas. You build boundaries, act decisively, and honor the self that has emerged from the shadow. The process is cinematic and dramatic, from chaos to order, from surrender to command, from being acted upon to acting consciously. The empowerment you feel is profound because it is earned, forged through confrontation, dialogue, and reclamation. The shadow, once feared as an enemy, reveals itself as a guide. It is the compass pointing toward your freedom, showing the directions you avoided, illuminating the territories you have neglected, highlighting the impulses that are yours to integrate rather than suppress. Confront it, speak with it, understand it, and let it teach you. In this confrontation, you find clarity, agency, and authenticity. The darkness does not vanish, but it no longer dictates your path. Instead, it informs, directs, and strengthens. To meet the shadow is to meet your true self, whole and sovereign, capable of navigating life consciously rather than unconsciously. Your shadow is not the enemy, it is the compass to your freedom. Peace is not given, it is claimed. True sovereignty is quiet. It does not roar with conquest, nor demand attention from the world. It resides in the stillness of knowing who you are, in the calm authority of a mind that has faced its shadows and reclaimed its choices. The quiet throne is the seat of inner power, a place where external chaos no longer dictates your rhythm. You sit there unshaken, observing the storms of society, the manipulations of expectation, the pull of old wounds, and you remain unmoved. Serenity is not passive, it is deliberate, cultivated through struggle and insight. Imagine standing atop a cliff as winds lash around you, clouds swirling violently, yet your feet are rooted, your gaze steady, your breathing even. This is the throne of self-possession, a domain where approval is internal, where love flows inward first, and where every decision is aligned with the essence of who you are. Cinematic in its simplicity, majestic in its quietude, this inner peace is both refuge and power. It is the place where the soul learns that life's storms no longer require surrender, only awareness and grounded presence. Trusting yourself again is the next step. After years of external programming and shadow-driven impulses, you may feel fragile, hesitant, uncertain, but the self that survived the collapse, the confrontation with darkness, and the reclamation of autonomy is trustworthy. You begin to test this trust through small, deliberate choices, speaking your truth when it matters, refusing paths that feel hollow, embracing what aligns with your authentic values. Every decision, every boundary, every act of alignment strengthens the bond between intention and action. Imagine walking through a forest, choosing each step consciously rather than being swept along by currents of fear or habit. Each footfall is a declaration: I am my own guide. I honor my instincts. I claim my freedom. Trust is rebuilt through repeated practice, through consistent alignment with self, and through the acknowledgement that clarity and intuition are your most reliable compass. As trust grows, so does the sense of liberation, and the soul begins to recognize that the chaos of the world cannot uproot a rooted self. The path forward is no longer dictated by fear, expectation, or obligation. It is shaped by clarity, authenticity, and love for oneself. You envision a life where decisions are intentional, where relationships are reciprocal and nourishing, where ambitions are chosen because they resonate rather than because they are applauded. This path is cinematic in its expansiveness. Sunrises you truly watch, conversations that are unmasked, passions pursued with devotion, boundaries upheld without guilt. The chaos of past betrayals becomes a backdrop, a teacher, a reminder of what has been reclaimed. Every day, you move with purpose, grounded in the knowledge that you are sovereign of your inner world. The light you carry is steady, illuminating the way not just for survival but for thriving. Liberation is not loud, it is profound, intimate, and sustaining. You have emerged from the storm, not untouched, but unbound. Your life becomes a testament to conscious choice, a celebration of the peace that arises when the self is honored, and a quiet rebellion against all forces that once sought to claim your essence. Peace is the rebellion of a soul that has learned to honor itself.